Hello, people, and welcome back to another Boil of Passion transfer news, transfer update, whatever it is. But today we are in a very jovial mood, given that what we've said for years has finally happened, and we're just here to have a bit of a victory lap. So, how are we doing, boys? Let's get into what we're going to get into.
I'm good, man. I'm excited. I don't think it's hit me still yet. I've consumed every bit of content, and I just don't think until I see him in the midfield actually performing for us. And I think even then it'll take me a couple weeks just to realize because I've seen some. Look, it's all in banter, but I've seen some really funny takes in terms of even just seeing him in a rondo and people being like, "Oh, this really relaxes me about his technical skill." And it's just like I think that there's going to be a lot of rewritten narrative within 6 months, and not just that, but like on a more global scale. I think the lies that have been told about his technical ability, and they're lies, will be kind of showed up really in really spectacular fashion. I don't think it takes long for him to adapt to what we're trying to do. I think he is just such a revolutionary signing that I'm sure we'll talk about in a little bit more detail. But just broadly speaking, I'm ecstatic, man. I'm just in euphoria. I'm going to retire, hang up the jersey. It's done. The player that I need wanted, and that's about it. I don't think that I look at the midfield as in trouble anymore for like the next 10 years. Something bad could happen to somebody else, and he's the type of player that you buy two players with him really. And his impact is even greater than that. So I'm beyond excited.
Chris, very first Boil of Passion episode, there was one man who took Mr. Declan Rice in his draft team.
I'm still salty.
It was.
I didn't steal it. You had a chance. You didn't.
You had a chance. You had a chance. You didn't pick him, and Chris did. So, how are you feeling, buddy?
Nah, for me, like it won't really settle until I see him, play probably the Community Shield is when I don't think the preseason will be enough for me. I think obviously the pictures and everything, he's in the thumbnail, so I've seen a lot of him. He's talked highly of the club. It is a big change from the facilities he had at West Ham compared to Arsenal.
Oh my god! It was just the upgrade is insane.
We could have made. We made it so early. I think the last 2 seasons it is great that we have the main business done before pre-season. We have a chance to not have to rush into the season. So it's great for him to settle in. People in the camp are already calling him a leader, and they can feel his presence. So yeah, there's nothing more I could wish for. That it is the signing I wanted. It is the best signing that will be done this summer. And yes, Declan Rice. Like, what more can I say? We've spoke about it so many times. Even when we're reviewing random games, we'll say, "Oh, Declan Rice could have changed this.
Yeah,
Declan Rice could have changed that." Then George will say, "Oh, a certain carb, something like that."
Oh,
so we've been talking about it for so long that it's just weird that he's here. Like, especially
one of the best things is going to be not having to hear him say a certain carb ever again. It's just I'm never.
It's really a great signing, let alone the other two. But Declan Rice is a great signing to be done.
You know what's crazy about it is I think that it makes the Premier League competitive because Declan Rice is the only player in world football that I think that had Pep gone in, there wouldn't be a competitive league for the next, I don't know, for as long as even he stayed and potentially longer. Because when you have a look at kind of what he means generally, guys, this is a guy that was wanted by every top club. He starts for every top club. I don't think, and I've kind of posed this question to other people, has there been an equivalent signing that Arsenal have made in their history in this level? I go back where I look, Ozil was more media adulation, but he was pushed out by Madrid. He was also somebody that was kind of towards the twilight of his career. I still think he had 1 or 2 peak years with us, but certainly a player on the down. And I'm looking at Dennis Bergkamp as the closest player that I can remember of a signing that was at the top of their game. And even then, there were questions in terms of, Dennis was coming not necessarily to kickstart an era. He was coming as an older head to really make sure that we kind of went into a different era. And I still think that Declan Rice is the first example of a pre-prime player that's a superstar, that I think everybody in the world wants. That's a top 3 player in his position. He's not 2 and 3. And I think that I'm struggling to find of another signing in our history where we've done something like that. Like, this is a Madrid Galactico level signing. And I don't know, I put it back to you guys. Has there been somebody in our history that you guys think this could compare to? You know?
No. It's the closest is Dennis for me. I said it on Twitter a couple of weeks ago. So for me, definitely was like this. For me is massive. It's just, I think the main thing for me is the ability just to be able to get our priority signing done, beat out Man City and Bayern Munich to well, United with their 40 million plus their extras, whatever that was, Maguire and Alanga, I think it was.
Yeah.
The ridiculous bid. But the point is the fact that we've got our man at a point where he is at the peak of his powers, going into a team that needs that specific profile to really push it over the edge is massive for me. It really is. I think that it really defines what this era is at Arsenal. It defines a new kind of what Mikel has been building, this new Arsenal that we've been building over the last couple of years. It defines what we are as a club going forward. It shows that we can compete at the highest level in terms of monetarily, if nothing else. We can acquire a talent for 105 million pounds. I think that was a major thing that I think a lot of people, including myself, were concerned about, the fact that we couldn't really break out of that 35 to 50 million pound range. Could we really get our primary target at 100 million or even more, and actually secure that deal? Because it's not something that is going to happen a ton. That's not a normal deal. So to get that deal over the line it's very reassuring to given what we need to do going forward. Because if things are as we predict on the channel, I think the next summer will be the attacker signing of a marquee attacker, and that's not going to be a cheap signing either. That's going to be 80, 100, maybe 120 million pounds. So if to get that signing over the line and show that we have the ability to compete at the highest level in European football is massive to me. I mean, Chris, what do you think in terms of just what it signifies as a signing for the club going forward?
Yeah, I think Bergkamp and Ozil are the only comparable ones. Bergkamp was a Ballon d'Or contender, and Ozil was signed from Real Madrid, both top 3 to 5 in their position. But yeah, I think Man City, Bayern, Chelsea, Man United all spoke with him, spoke with his dad. Couldn't convince him to go to their teams. City put in a 90 million bid. Some people said it was as a favour to Arteta, which doesn't make sense, because what if West Ham accept it? Is it still a favour?
No.
But yeah, I think going forward, it just stamps a mark in the market, tells everyone we're actually here. I know a lot of people at the back end of the last season, when we fell away, were like, oh my God, we're not going to be able to make these types of deals. But yeah, to do it so early against the competition does scream loud about what we are. He is 24. He will be a future England captain. He just captained his team to a European trophy. Hopefully he does captain us to a European trophy. But for us, I think it signifies like a massive improvement. We have some of the top 10, like under 24 players, some of the best are at Arsenal right now. We've got 2 of the best DMs in the world in this position. But I think securing someone so early, that was really what Man United used to do. The best out of the big 4.
This is such a Man United signing. Do you not think?
And I think
domestic
it just signifies us moving forward to being the best of the best in England.
Well, I think it would be domestic. Like, there's so many reasons why this is ironically not an Arsenal signing, and why I'm so excited in the meantime with it. Because look, we've never gone after the prize pony. You know, even when we were looking at, you know, very big marquees, we were definitely a club that would kind of go into like the B tier talent and recruitment. I think, yeah. And so for me, when you have a look at it, you know, it's not just that he's a United player in the sense that, you know, he's a domestic homegrown stud that everybody wants. And, it's not just that for me. It was kind of what Man United have represented in terms of a rival going out and trying to get the biggest marquee that they can. And that always hasn't been quality adjacent, by the way. This is one of the few times that I think that, when you compare a Declan Rice, he's not just somebody that's cost the most money. He is the best quality side by side. Like, it's very rare. And I've made this very bold prediction. I think that within, I don't know about a timeline, but I think when we look back in time, the £100 million will look cheap for Declan. And I think the amount of service that you get with him, when you spend £100 million, there's a couple things that you absolutely have to do. And this is what Declan solves, which is why I'm so ecstatic, is he's got to come through 2 contract cycles, in my opinion. Like, you've got to secure somebody for at least 2 contracts of 4 years minimum to justify something, anything over 60 to 80 million pounds. I think that's a minimum. Next, he's got to be, when he comes in as a £100 million player, the best or top 3 in the world, not just in the league, but in the world in terms of status. And I think that has to happen before you kind of go into the quality of the player. When you look at kind of, is he versatile? Is he only going to come in to play a particular role? That's not really the case. And so for me, I look at all the benefits of this deal, and I just, before even commenting on the actual skill that he offers and what he's going to bring to the team, I just think those 3 things need to be answered when you talk about superstar marquees. Like, you can't buy somebody that's specific to a system. You can't buy somebody that's not going to give you over 2 contract lengths. You can't sign somebody that is not ready now. Like, that is a big issue with Mudrik's. By the way, the Gavardiol.
The Anthony.
Yeah, like the Antony's, like why this deal is so much more different is because when you have a look, Gavardiol is, I think, a really brilliant marker because our rivals are doing it. So when you compare, what does a Gavardiol give them as opposed to a Declan Rice? Well, Gavardiol is basically somebody that's not ready, by the way. I think he's an insane talent. He's a very good talent, but he's somebody that's quite deficient in terms of his defending out wide. He's not somebody that is top 3 left center backs in the world right now. They're betting on potential. Do I think he earns that? Sure. Yeah, he does. He will end up earning that, but he isn't that now. And I think that's a huge component of this deal specifically. Declan Rice is walking in as one of the best DMs in world football. And that's massive to the potential of what Arsenal can do going forward, not just 4 or 5 years down the line. Like, you're talking right now, he's adding this quality. And I think when you start to talk about the leadership potential and you look at this young team, yes, it matters. Like, the average age of the squad last year was 23.6 something. And when you have a look at it, we've gotten younger with Xhaka going out. Like, Declan is only 24. Like, we've actually lowered the average squad age for a player, by the way, that is going to be in the role in the dressing room as the leader. And, I'm sure we're going to get stories very soon about how Declan's assimilated beautifully, how he's become a big voice in the squad.
We already had them, and he's been there for less than a week.
Yeah.
Or a week or so, and he's barely trained. He's had 3 training sessions, and they're already saying his presence can be felt throughout the team already. And I think he's a person that throughout his career has been gravitated towards. All his players came out saying, "Thank you, Capitano," all this stuff. He's a leader at England. Obviously, he can't be captain yet because of Maguire and Kane, but he probably will be England captain. He will end up being Arsenal captain. And I think the leadership is a big thing because a player of that money can't just blend in. I don't think 100 million. If you're going to sign a player that marquee, I don't think you can blend in. So I think to sign someone of this quality has to be a leader. He is special on and off the ball, and we haven't spoken about that in this video, but we've spoken about it before. He is great on and off the ball, and he is more talented than any DM in the world. He probably is the best DM prospect. At 24, you can't really call him a prospect, but there's still loads of potential, and a lot of DMs peak in 8 years. So if we do have what George is saying, 2 contract cycles, he will peak at the end of it. So yeah, for me, this is honestly a perfect signing. But what do you guys think of Rice?
I mean, the main thing for me is quite simple, is that I don't think the 6 market is as good as people are making out. I think that's the main thing that I think people are missing here. I think everyone's going, oh, but you can get Caicedo, you can get Lavia, you can get, I don't know, Redondo if you want to go for a prospect. You can get all sorts of guys that can come in. I just genuinely don't think that there's a better talent off the ball and on the ball. There's a talent that's improving day by day, as well as being already at an elite level, which people just miss. People just go, "Oh, he's not good at the ball. His switches are too lofty. They don't come with enough venom." I mean, when you're playing at West Ham,
I have a lot to say on that because I just factually think it's lies. Sorry to cut you off, Aaron. I mean, it's not floaty. They're directed quite well. He's got excellent technique. He strikes through the ball. I think people that say that are just doing so based on the opinion of who was receiving in terms of the opposite flank. When you look at Suchek and when you look at Kufal receiving a long ball in terms of how poor technically they are, Declan has to put backspin to make sure that they're able to kind of get it. So when you have a look at it, for me, that's very wrong in terms of the specific skill. He's got phenomenal long ball technique. In fact, that's probably one of the major strengths that he offers. He's shown it since he was first coming in as a center back when he first came in the first team. But even more specifically, I think that he's somebody that offers that kind of Van Dijk, quote unquote, that Mikel loves to quote in terms of that long switch out to Salah. Like that is a huge strength of Declan Rice, but it's not just that. I really wanted to talk about the specific benefits he has in passing the ball because he's got a huge range, guys. Like this guy's feet and his quick feet in tight spaces is phenomenal. It doesn't make sense that somebody his size should have that level of ball manipulation, by the way, when he carries, but also when he stands up and he's able to spot passes. Do you know that Declan Rice is in the 98th percentile for final third entries? Passing wise, not carries, passing wise. I don't understand.
In the league.
Yeah. So I don't understand the legitimate lies that I hear about him even just being a carrier, because it's not just the fact that he's a carrier. He is a brilliant passer in his own right. The one thing that I think he needs to work on, by the way, in the final third would be his off-the-ball runs. Like, he's not a winger. He's not an attacker. He's never done that. But if you're really going to critique something about Declan Rice in the final third, it would be his ability to stretch through running and kind of understanding those interchanges. But again,
has he ever been in a position to learn to do that?
I was just going to say, like, he's never had an opportunity to show that. And also he's got insane running power. So it's not as though he can't do it. He's got phenomenal stamina. But if you're really trying to critique about some cons of Declan Rice, I think the one con that I think he could be is a little bit braver. But again, I'm going to caveat that. The bravery comes with trusting your teammates. When you're playing with Suchek, who can barely touch the ball and be responsible for the ball, you're not going to be adventurous in terms of where you're going to have split lines. You're not going to be adventurous between the lines. You're not going to be adventurous in the first phase. And by the way, I like the fact that Declan Rice is a little bit conservative in certain moments in the first phase. You want that. You don't want your six to be overtly vertical in the first phase constantly. And as long as when you're looking at something, you need to make sure he's got the skill. And for me, he constantly shows about finding people between the lines. And, I think there's going to be a huge narrative shift where people are going to say, oh my God, look at how Declan Rice has improved so much. And
I said it.
You said it on Twitter. I remember
because I think within 10, not even like the whole season, within 10 games, maybe even before that, people are going to act like he's learned something completely different with Arteta. But
preseason was mad for him or something.
But you can see that the talent transfer, but he just has a lot lower level teammates that not many players. He's never played with a player on his level technically. No offense to the West Ham players, but he hasn't. And you can see it in training with Arsenal, like when he does the rondos with Jorginho and Havertz, they're the type of technical level that he's meant to be playing with, like a Jorginho. No matter how much I don't think he's perfect, but technically not many players can pass better than a Jorginho. So that's the type of players Declan Rice will be compared to within 10 games. People are going to act like he's learning to pass short, to do 1-2s. But if you watch him versus Newcastle versus Liverpool, he controls the midfield alone versus some of the best midfields in Europe, let alone the Prem.
Yeah.
Newcastle, Liverpool have some of the best midfields in Europe. But yeah, I think the narrative around it, because a lot of people call him a road runner or stuff like this just because he's English and he's played for a lower level team. But I think, within 10 games, people are going to act like he's a new player, like a new name and everything, like he's exotic and all this stuff. But he is him. Like he will still be the exact same player, not a lot of change, and people pretend.
I'm going to throw it back to both you and Curran. I'll let Curran go first. But look, we've talked about like his benefits on the ball. We talked about his passing, his carrying, and all the all of the amazing things, and we know the off the ball traits like the interceptions, the blocks, the tackles. His interceptions, I think, are the combined effort of Granit Xhaka and Thomas Partey. We know that's his superpower, and when you look at kind of the interception, he makes it an art. Like, he is so intelligent about analyzing dribbling patterns. I made this comparison before. You guys remember like the Detroit Pistons versus kind of the Chicago?
I do. Yeah.
Entire thing about us having to go through something to beat a city, but not just that. Declan Rice specifically really reminds me of a certain character in that squad. I'm sure you guys all know who that is. But for me, I love the fact that he is able to read space so well. I think that's one of his superpowers that doesn't get talked about enough. And the reason that he has such amazing interception powers is because of his reading of the game. It has really nothing to do with the fact that, he's just an athlete. He's just great in duels. It's not just that. It's the fact he gets himself into a position to constantly be ahead of the curve, so to speak, in terms of where the play is going to go, where the breakdown is going to go. And he almost has these two techniques of being a hunter, I call it, in 1v1s, where he's going to run and keep up with you. But then in other areas, he's going to be somebody that is going to wait for you to have a misconstrued touch, a misconstrued, carry and a dribble. And that's the controlled aggression beauty. And he just balances that just so beautifully. But to get back to the question, because I want to ask you guys something. In terms of any weaknesses, I talked about the off-the-ball thing in the final third and the bravery for me at times. He's got the skill. He doesn't show it as much. For you guys, and I'll go to Curran first, like, what do you think Declan can improve on? Because the crazy thing is we've got a pre-prime player. For as much as we've eulogized right now in terms of all the specific skills, we are getting a clay that hasn't been molded. So I wanted to ask you, Curran, like, what do you think? And maybe you can answer this as well.
That's the reason I brought it up. Yeah, I mean, for me, I think there's a difference between like silky half turn, like crazy silky smooth technicians like a Busquets, rather than what we're going to have with Declan. Chris, you can back me up on this. Is much more of a wide progressor. He likes to pick up from wide areas and run centrally. He's not someone that's going to be the sixth hub like Jorginho is, the regista that splits the centre backs. He's more of he'll pick it up from wide, carry into the middle third, and really try and be that sort of progressor from deep via carries as well as his passing. So I don't think that every six is going to be Busquets. I love Busquets, but he's not that kind of player. In terms of what Georgia was asking, in terms of what he can improve, I want to see more of a more refined sort of awareness sometimes, in terms of like with West Ham, he tends to do he has to do everything. We're going to have to ask him to do a lot less. We're not going to have to. He's not going to have to do everything. So he's going to need to adjust to having players that can actually be second phase midfielders that can actually help him in build. He's not going to have to do everything, and that's the kind of thing that I want to see. Will he be able to just hand the reins off to Odegaard or get the ball to Zinchenko? Is he going to have that sort of awareness to be like, I don't need to do everything here? Because he's had to do that for so long. Even with England, they've left him on an island so many times. Like, you remember the France game? They literally, like Bellingham and Henderson, they literally left a half space worth of space between him and them two. They just let him do everything himself. So it's sort of like, will he have to? He has to have the ability to rein himself back. I think that's going to be the main thing for me, because if he tries to do everything, he's going to need to adapt to what we have within the squad already, because we have so many technicians, the likes of an Odegaard or Zinchenko in the first phase and second phase. In the higher up, you're talking Saka, you're talking Havertz, which we'll get into in a sec. But what do you think, Chris? What do you think that needs to, like, his improvements needs to be?
I think it's something he's been developing over the past year probably, but the tempo control, I think. The variety he'll need to use will increase, because at times we'll have to blitz a team fast, and at times we'll have to slow the game down, try to dominate the ball for 5-10 minute periods and just keep the ball. And I think with a player like him, we're going to need a technical destroyer, but at the same time for him to control the ball. Like, at times Partey was just way too vertical, and I think when Declan does play in the DM, he does have a better variety of pass, I think, than him. He's more comfortable with just playing the pass sideways,
Yeah.
playing the pass backwards, sometimes driving with the ball. And I just think that decision making, even though it's good, but I think it needs to develop. There was a point in his career, maybe when he was 22, the
hmm
tempo control really wasn't there. He wasn't fully ready,
No,
I think, to be a DM. And I
100%.
still
Yeah.
don't think he's fully ready now to be the
I
DM.
mean, when we started the
for
channel, we had this was the
position.
main concern we had. Do you remember? We used to talk
Yeah,
about it. We used to like he has everything. He just needs to learn how to control the timing of his movements and actions at times. So
yeah. I think in the first phase, he will be our controller
mm,
along with Zinchenko. But I think just the tempo control is really what will take him to the next level, I think, for if he plays 40, 50, 60 games for us this season.
No, I wanted to just jump in because look, when people say that he has a tendency to build wide, like I mean, honestly, Kurt, like for me, he does that because that's where the space is.
that's what, yeah, of course, yeah, and that's where that's the team he's built in as well. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's the West Ham dynamics. So
right. But
100%.
when I even look at performances like Anfield in terms of West Ham versus that, the amount of central progression that I found there and also on the right was brilliant. Like when you look at what does this half turn ability have? I don't know why people think that a half turn has to be fluid for you to be effective in a progressive passer deep. Now, the one thing I can agree with is I think Declan sometimes, if anything, he has technical inconsistencies. So what I mean by that is there's times when he loses the ball where he shouldn't. And I think some of that is body orientation ways, like receiving the ball can be a little bit more tight in the way that he does it. But it has nothing to do with him being more fluid on the half turn. That doesn't make you a more progressive player. What does is your idea for a pass and where to pass it and when, and at what speed and what tempo, and then what the game state needs. Kind of, Chris, what you were touching on was a bit more in the sense that like he's got the skill for it, but the decision making, when to speed up play, when to slow down play, that decision making, which of course comes with experience, but it doesn't rely on a fluid half turn. And this is what I hear so many times when I start to hear about people asking, oh, what's the difference between a Lavia, Caicedo? And every time what I'm hearing is, I prefer the way that player looks.
Yeah.
Not the skill, but I prefer the way he looks when he turns because it looks so nice. And that is what I like about it. That's not the case right now. I think when you look at a Declan Rice, we can critique some of the body orientation stuff, which, by the way, who's the best coach in the world for that? Mikel Arteta. But beyond just that, I think for him, the biggest thing is learning that tempo control, but also as a team, by the way, Arsenal have struggled. There was this brilliant graphic by StatsBomb that kind of looked at passing sequences, right? And it looked at different game states, whether you're losing, or you're winning. They analyzed the length of pass, and it basically kind of was an adjunct for being really vertical, aka long passes or longer passing sequences versus short passing sequences. And what it found was Arsenal in general are more vertical than Man City. That shouldn't be a surprise. And by the way, I love that. I don't mind that. I don't mind being more vertical than Man City. I don't think that you need to be as conservative as Man City all the time. But one thing that I didn't like is that our spread in a losing position to drawing and to winning showed no variety in our passing sequence. That's something that I would like to see. So when we are in winning states, I don't want us to be as vertical. I do want us to be a little bit less vertical. I want that spread to maintain. But overall, I don't mind us being generally more, more vertical than our opposition. But I think that's what Declan can probably develop. And for me, I'm critiquing. I'm being really critical here.
Well, I think the great thing is he's learning it at the same time as everyone else. We're all learning together. The whole team none of them are used to being 60% possession team. We weren't that before this season, really. We weren't consistently a 50%, well, not 50, sorry, 60% possession team in games where you have 70, 80% possession in the first half. Declan would have never experienced that, and he will have to learn on how to act when you have the ball so much. When to dribble, as I said, when to pass backwards, when to just hold the ball, when to just stand there. Like, there will be times where you'll just need to just stand there and let the team progress. And if the midfield is him, Havertz, and Erdegaard, the responsibility will increase defensively a bit. But there will be a high technique compared to what he had at West Ham. It is something he'll have to learn, and I do think he will learn it. Maybe not in 1 month. it will take time because it's something he hasn't ever done. But yeah, I think that's what he needs to evolve to be the best of the best, with no argument. That's all.
Well, I think that's a really good transition because we're going to have to talk about the other guys, and it's been almost half an hour, and we're not here for much longer than an hour. So we should get into the other signings.
Yeah.
I think Kai Havertz is a beautiful idea because, Curran, when we first started this channel, there was a big debate, and we converted you after some much needed
Yeah,
cognitive
we
error.
did.
And then we're going to have to convert back, aren't we?
And no, heck no. I think it's having a look at how we best fit Kai Havertz and what Kai Havertz is. So maybe we can get into kind of who Kai Havertz is as a player, the reasons for why we saw what we saw at Chelsea and what we didn't see at Leverkusen, and then
All the way around.
get into how that fits into the team. So maybe I'll kind of attack with Curran first. Like, what do you see in terms of the profile of Kai Havertz only?
Look, for me, I mean, you can see it. You can see it behind me. I've got the board up. That's the main thing I've got that on that board is all my Kai Havertz rotations and how we're going to use him. For me, Kai Havertz is going to be that second striker, mobile kind of target man that we wanted to have with Granit Xhaka, a much more attacking version of it, a much more offensively minded version of it. I don't like the profiling that we've seen a lot. I think a lot of people have tried to misplace him as Thomas Muller. He's not Thomas Muller. He's someone that has the ability to find space like Thomas Muller, but it's not all he is. I think he is someone that is going to need to learn a lot in terms of just temperament and in terms of being able to be aggressive, his controlled aggression throughout the games for 90 minutes. I think there are times he's going to have to drift in and out of games. And I can't have that, especially if you're going to be at a left central midfield. I don't like that characterization either. I've continuously said if we're going to have him, we're going to move to a 4-man midfield. We can't have Zinchenko.
Well, we are a 4-man midfield.
Yeah, no, but come on, man. We're talking about casuals here. This isn't. We all know that we're having a format. We've had a box midfield for the past year. This is not news to anyone on this panel. But the point is, the casuals are going to have to start to realize that it's not really going to be a situation where you can have, for example, Rice, Erdegaard, and Havertz, which is the general consensus. I mean, if you look at any ESPN, FC, or Talksport or whatever, Rice, Havertz, Erdegaard, Rice, Havertz, Erdegaard, Rice, Havertz, Erdegaard. It's not Rice, Havertz, Erdegaard. It's never going to be Rice, Havertz, Erdegaard. Rice, Havertz, maybe Kivior, or maybe Zinchenko, or maybe even Timber. We'll get into that. There will be a 4-man midfield. It's quite simple. That's because you just need to. There's just the spacing wise, especially out of possession as well. But you asked me about the pros and cons. The pros, well, quite clearly his ability to find space, especially in the final third, the runs that he makes into the box. I think we're going to see a lot of back post crosses from Ben White to Kai Havertz and then knockdowns or headers. I think that's going to be a major chance creation mechanism. Also, his ability to find the byline and cross or cut back for, I don't know, an Erdegaard or some kind of this for third man runs. I think there's a lot of different chance creation mechanisms that he will thrive in, and his ability to drift wide and be that kind of overlap on the left hand side is going to be so critical to getting a Martinelli more close to the goal. So I think there are issues there. I think intensity and for 90 minutes, and obviously the defensive things that we're going to discuss, but in terms of what he does bring off and on the ball offensively, there are reasons and ways we can definitely use him.
Yeah, there's tons of reasons. I wanted to get, Chris's opinion because I saw him agree with something that Curran said. And look, for me, like, I'm going to push back a bit. I do see him in the Muller mold in terms of what you need to do. But what did Muller need? He needed Lewandowski. When you look at it and you look back at Leverkusen, for me, this is a second striker that doesn't do well under contact, so can't be the first one receiving, but can pick up those kind of loose balls after a big physical backboard, can knock it down to him, and he can facilitate either the left or the right. I don't think he's got an angle bias. I think he prefers the right half space. He trusts his left foot opening up to space a lot more from that side. He prefers that area for me. He's somebody that's insane in transition, something I don't think people understand. Not only is he 6'4" as a monster, but he's incredibly quick. I don't think people realize this. Like, he's a very quick player. And I think in transition, he's somebody that, particularly at Leverkusen with more transitional space, he was somebody that thrived in that space. I think the one thing with Kai is he's got, he's inconsistent technically, but that's, I think, a confidence issue. The best thing for me is his ability to spot space in the back line. That is Kai's best quality. He's a space invader, quote unquote, I call it. And, he's somebody that, for me, I think you need to pair with kind of a Kevin De Bruyne role in the Holland. And we'll get into the diamond and everything a little bit down the line. But the reason I keep saying a diamond is because I just see the Kevin De Bruyne role with Holland as something that Kai Havertz individually would thrive off of. That means he can't be the primary creator. It means he's a +1 facilitator. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
If he's not that, and he's asked not to finish chances, but to latch on to cutbacks, that's a potent Kai because he finds space in the box brilliantly. If you have a look at the Nuremberg game, guys, in the highlights, everybody was critiquing how Havertz did nothing. I'm sat there watching how he was the one in the box for 3 or 4 times cleared. And it was just like, wow, if we can find him, he's going to get goals. And my worry is, just to tie it off, and I'll throw it back to you, Chris, my worry is the contact. My worry has always been the contact because I don't think that he sets himself up well. He's got a very short back lift and, for me, a variety of finishes. I think he's actually got a great lob chip. I think he knows where to put the ball. The issue for me is he's off balance at times in the box and he rushes his actions. And then lastly, he can't deal with contact. When you hit Kai from behind, it's like blowing over a tree. He isn't consistently able to hold contact, even though in the press, he's somebody, Kern, that you mentioned, and I agree with. He can meet markers really well. I don't agree he's great in duels, but he can meet markers with intensity. And so he can do that Odegaard role of leading the press. What do you think, Chris, in terms of the best way to maximize Kai? And if there's something that we haven't said about his profile that you wanted to kind of highlight, why don't you give that in addition to kind of the role that you see him playing?
Well, the best Havertz we've ever seen in England was of Tammy Abraham. Tammy Abraham chesting it down, playing on twos, running in behind. I think what I don't like to see Havertz is in a lot of 1v1s. I don't think he's ever thrived in 1v1s with the keeper. Like when he's running in 30 yards onto the goal, just him and the keeper, giving him so much time to think. I think that hurts him. I think when you take away the time to think and he can just take snapshots, it's perfect for his ball striking. So I think him running third man, late runs into the box will be perfect for him. He's got great spatial awareness, great movement. He's good in the air. He scores a lot from corners, weirdly, when it's just the most chaos in the box. So I think he thrives in the chaos. He can find space that other players can't find in the chaos. I think the role I assume we play him in is probably the best for him because he can't be the main man. Especially in England. Like, as you said, he can't ride the contact. And I think you're not a rubbish player when you have accumulated that much XG. He did score the most goals for Chelsea this season. He did underperform his XG a lot. Him and Eddie.
Which was odd, by the way. Sorry, just as a subject. In Germany, he overperformed his XG quite a bit. He typically does.
Having 2 of the top 4 underperformances in XG in England, and then obviously Balogun may not play with us, but he was top 10 in Europe. Having players like this who underperform XG.
You know what picture I'm thinking of when you mentioned Balogun underperformance, don't you?
Yeah, I'm unsure as to how that will translate. I think the chances he will get at Arsenal, I assume, looking at the Nuremberg game, looking at what other players in that position have done, Trossard, Xhaka, leads me to believe there's a big chance for success here. I think the volleys, people shouldn't take that into account. One, how many volleys will he even take in that much space? 2, he didn't care. He had his socks rolled down. He was just walking around. So that shouldn't go into anyone's mind and make him, oh my God, waste of 65 million because he can't volley. That shouldn't really change what someone thinks. But yeah, I think in space, starting off the bench even, that a person that can consistently create chaos for 90 minutes. Because I don't think he's our only player that thrives in chaos. I think Martinelli is someone who thrives in that chaos as well. He is also
how many off the ball runners does the final third department have? Look at how many ball to feet players we have as a ratio and how many off the ball runners we have. And that's something that I've always tried to ask for people that want to think about Kai. Look, for me, I'm not going to hide behind it. I don't think when I saw Kai Havertz, I was like, oh my God, I'm amazed. I'm really happy about this deal. But when I have a think about what are things that this front line lacks, he adds things that this front line lacks. I think Eddie potentially is the only other player besides Martinelli who we know is our off the ball runner, right?
Yeah.
And even with Eddie, he's more somebody that likes the contact. He actually looks to it. He's a great outlet, but he's somebody that enjoys that contact and enjoys rolling you. That's not Kai. Kai is, for as much
Evading it. He's evading the contact.
yeah, for as much as he's 6'4", he reminds me of a Freddie Ljungberg in terms of how he likes to play in the final third. He's somebody that, will join into the ruckus, but really loves those off the ball runs. He really loves kind of making sure that he's pushing the back line. The Robin Van Persie comparisons for me were lazy in a sense, because technically he's not Robin Van Persie, but the one thing that he is with Robin Van Persie is those runs. Robin Van Persie was phenomenal at spotting space in a back line, and he was always on the last shoulder of the defense. And I think that Kai will do that. And what that does, having a player like that in combination with a lot of those ball to feet players, is it allows you to push the back line deeper because they have to be wary of that threat. And that what that does ultimately is it gives space to the ball to feet players. So I think there's a lot of ways that we can look at it. Maybe Colonel, let you kind of deal with this because it talks about the box midfield. We can talk about that, and then we'll end on Timber. But why don't you answer this first?
Yeah, I mean, the way this works is quite simple for me. I think we have.
By the way, I don't think this works at all. I don't think there's a world that
I've never thought of a way to making it work either.
It's not. So I think there's a misconception for what I was saying as well. I think the way what people say is we look at it as an inverted left back. You want to form the box, right? We usually have a 2-3 formation in the first phase, a 5-man build up, and the fullbacks either invert or they kind of go a bit wider. And you have Saliba and Gabriel, and then Rice will be in the middle with White and Zinchenko either side. It can also be a case where we have a 3-2 where you have White come inside and Rice and Zinchenko forming the pivot together. I think we'll see a lot more of the pivot with Rice. He's a much more improved pivot player, and it's a good thing. This leads to Timber as well, because Timber can form the right side of that pivot and allow Declan to be in his more natural left side, where his preference is in terms of where he likes to pick up the ball. So I think that the main midfield will be Rice with Havertz and Ødegaard with a fourth man coming in from defense to form the box, and that's the way we've done things last season. That's the way we'll probably do things this season. You could also, for example, have Partey at right back, and he can form the pivot. You can also have, for example, a Rice and Partey pivot with an Ødegaard a bit higher up, for example. So there's a lot of different things can happen. We can form a 3-4-3 with Rice and Partey at the base. There's a lot of different ways to get around to. Kivior is also someone that comes into consideration. So we'll have. I'm going to think we can have we'll do a video in terms of how the midfield balance goes, because it really is something that is going to take a long time to explain, because there's so many different rotations and so many different ways you can get things going because of the way that we structure our build up, because you can have two different formations of our build up, and the personnel involved with that build up is so different as well. So you can have, for example, Kivior, Zinchenko on the left side. You can have White and or Timber. You can have Saliba coming in, and there's also an idea of Saliba running into midfield. There's a lot of different things that can happen. So I think it's a very, very detailed topic, but I think that the main thing is we will not be having 3 men in midfield. I think that's the big takeaway from things, because we form the box, and then the box can either rotate where you can have Havertz being a bit more higher up and going into a diamond sort of movement with Ødegaard pulling to the left or pulling to the right. You can also have Trossard, as this is mentioned, can also perform as an 8 as well. There's a different things going on. So midfielders, I think the main way you can talk about it is options, and to offset the amount of off the ball work that Declan has to do, we're going to have to pack that midfield in terms of personnel. You can't have him patrolling the bench like it's a 3-1 with Rodri. That's just not going to work, especially in Champions League. It's just not going to work. So in knockout games, you need to be able to have a sustainable rest defense / transition control. So there's a lot of things that are going to have to change in terms of what the rotations are going into the thing. And if you listen to Mikel today, he's talking about how are you going to get Thomas Rice and Jorginho into the same team. There's going to be a lot of things. Yeah, for me, it never left. This is my thing.
It did. You converted. It did. Don't even lie. It did. It did. Don't say it was always something.
What did I exactly say, Mr. Robot? What did I exactly say? What was my preference?
You're right. You're right. The 3-4-3 you said was you've converted back. We got him on board. And, look, I think ultimately when you look at it, it won't even be a true 3-4-3 because, I've got some picks that, we're going to hopefully try to add, in the next couple minutes here to try to show everybody in terms of
which 2 picks. You need to send them to me. The off the ball and on the ball ones you use. Is that
yeah.
I got you. Give me a second.
And so, well, the one thing that I was going to ask is while we wait for that in a minute or two, I'll ask, kind of Corinne first, because I think Chris is busy, unless Chris, you can multitask. But in terms of the fullback roles, although I think I got a message that they're in, so never mind. Let's talk 3-4-3 here. So guys, this is your typical 3-4-3. This is something that I've been spamming on the timeline for months now. And the reason I orient this 3-4-3 is just so that you guys can get a visual. I mean, I know everybody loves FIFA, but sometimes we kind of struggle to understand how this stuff works. So when we look at the libero down there, that's clearly Saliba. Everybody's on board with that, and we know our back line being kind of Gabriel at the left center back, which could be Jakub Kiwior as well. That's definitely an option. But I think right now we've got Gabriel who will defend that channel brilliantly and has, and then of course on the right center back there you've got Ben White. Then this is the diamond midfield that we're talking about. So when we talk about a box midfield in general, guys, this is just an asymmetrical box. So if you really wanted, you could just make it a 2-2, which is just one of the 8 or the 6, dropping with the 4. That's as simple as what it is. Or you can be a little bit more attacking, which is what I think this is what maximizes Kai Havertz best as, because, again, as the AM right now, Kai Havertz isn't responsible for all of the chance creation, and a lot of that funnels through the lateral central midfielders that you see in this box. Now, how is this different to what we've seen last season to this season? And I'm going to say it's really not a whole lot different, because what this turns into off the ball, because everybody seems to be questioning what is the off the ball change, it'll look something a little bit more like this. And again, this is our classic 3-4-3. The only thing is right now, what you're having is the lateral central midfielder, which is the 8 right now, drops in to form the pivot, which is what we've seen last season in this 3-2-5. And the only difference that we have right now is who is going to be that central midfielder that drops in the pivot. And for me, the best thing is having the 6 and the 10 where they are, because I don't want Martin Odegaard and Kai Havertz being responsible for defending in a pivot. Now, we can make this a lot more attacking, by the way, and go a full man-to-man press by just asking the libero, the number 5 that's deepest over there, to join where the 8 is. The 8 will press up where the 10 is, and the 10 will just join the front line with the 9. That's a simple way that we can turn this, what is effectively a 5-4-1, into a 4-4-2, which is what we've seen all season. So the principles of play aren't destroyed here at all. When you have a look at it, it is really a very similar system to what we had. The only issue is, what I love is if you're going to flip between the 3-4-3 here, and you can see in and out of possession, look at what Declan Rice is doing. So I'm going to go back really broadly. The 3-4-3, you see your DM, your number 4 is there. The big difference is he joins the back line here, essentially. It's not a big difference, because this is kind of something that we've seen quite a bit, and it's maybe a difference of 5 yards. So it's not something that is very difficult. It's something Declan has done, by the way. And I think that is how we might be using our anchors a little bit more down the line. And we might be seeing this more center back build where Jakub Kiwior in the 3, by the way, could work brilliantly here. I mean, he's got the opportunity to overlap really well, something he can do much better than Gabriel if we wanted to change things up a bit. It leaves our players in kind of the positions that they really were. The only change I will say, and I will add to this, is in the 10 and in the 6 right now, that's your Martin Odegaard and your Kai Havertz. Is Kai Havertz always going to be left-hand on the left-hand side? No, I actually think there's potential. I've been saying it for years now. Martin Odegaard can switch to the left-hand side. Why? You got to ask yourself, what's the relationship with the winger? And for me, between the two, you got to look at what Martinelli is and what Bukayo Saka is. Bukayo Saka is a more ball-to-feet winger. He's somebody, we want both of these guys inside closer to goal. But Bukayo Saka is somebody that likes it ball to feet a lot more than Martinelli. Martinelli's more of an off the ball runner. So when you combine that with the central midfielder that is right next to you, you don't want to have a multitude of roles. Okay. So you don't want to ask Kai, who we again said earlier in the stream is somebody that likes to run off the ball, be paired with an off the ball winger. That for me is something that creates redundancy. That's something that I don't think will thrive as much as somebody who likes the ball to feet, like Martin Odegaard, who can then release kind of Martinelli with a lot more symmetry. I think that will be a little bit more of a beneficial partnership. And then when you look at Kai kind of on the right-hand side in the 10 here, he is somebody that could definitely invade the space while Bukayo receives ball to feet. And I think that's a little bit more of a better complement. But regardless, when you look at the 3-4-3, you're not declining in terms of your offensive midfielders. You still have them. They're up top. They're right there. The only thing is you're basically asking your DM to join the back line slightly. That's the only change in a 3-4-3 that we're looking at. I'm going to throw it back to you guys in terms of how we implement this. Do you guys think that this is the best way to maximize Kai Havertz in general? Or do you think that instead of having the asymmetrical box, which is like the diamond, we just have the typical 2-2 where they're just in the straight line? Or do you guys think it matters? Because for me, I think
it doesn't matter. Let's be real. It's really just a case of semantics at this point, because there's movement. It's not static. So there's not like, for example, we're not going to see Kai just consistently stick to one side of the pitch, especially in the final third. If you listen to any, I go back to the Thierry appearance on Monday Night Football where he's talking about Pep's system, and in the final third, he's consistently said that you're allowed to have the freedom of movement to attack the space as you want, and that's where we're going to see Kai at his best, finding space and really trying to make sure that he's in the position to really exploit what the backline's offering him. So I think that it will be a case where there's movement, and there's a lot of movement, especially if we can go from at times when we need to a 5 to a 6 man front line. His involvement's deeper in the box, making sure that he can actually run that rotation with Jesus as well, being able to run past him and find the space past Jesus, as Jesus likes to drop at times. So there will be a lot of movement there. I don't think it's a case where you're thinking of it just as one specific, one position that he's going to be pretty static in, one specific set of rotations where he's doing the triangle with the winger and Martinelli and the central midfielder or the fullback. So it's not a case of just a single triangle. He's going to be involved with a rotation with Jesus. He might rotate with Odegaard at points. There's going to be movement in that front line. So not a massive thing for me.
Yeah, not a massive thing. And I'll go to Chris kind of to end, like, mate, not just that, but I want you to maybe get into Timber as well, because I think we haven't left a lot of meat on the formation change bone. But do you think there's anything different that we've said? And then maybe if not, can you maybe get into Timber? And then we'll discuss Timber before we end off.
No, I just think people have to get away from the idea of rigid formations.
Yeah.
When you see Saka sometimes on the left wing, Jesus on the right wing, Martinelli striker, sometimes the whole front three is in completely different positions. Zinchenko in centre mid, Odegaard in the middle of the pitch. So you'll see players in very, very different positions to what you'd see BT Sport or now TNT Sport, you guys, or Sky Sport line up with at the start of the game. So at this point, the team will just consistently change, maybe even change on a weekly basis. It just depends on what it was. Like at the end, what we were doing at the end of the season wasn't what we were doing at the start or the middle or 3 weeks before the last game of the season. We weren't playing the same way. So I think that will just continue to change. And on Timber, I've seen some people say he will start over Ben White. I don't think so, but
I don't think he's playing the same position as Ben White. Are we still adamant that he's a right back?
I think he's a very good signing. I think he's a very good ball carrier between the lines. I think he likes the safety of the center of the pitch. He doesn't carry the ball on the touchline. It's very rare to see him bombing up and down the flank like you'd see a Ben White. He's probably more going to, if he does play right back, I don't think he will, but if he does, he'll be more of an inverted type, allowed to drive like a Zinchenko really, flipped on the other side. I think he's more of a DM than a right back. If anyone wants to give him another position, I think he's more comfortable centrally. I think he's a very good player, very good technically. is very confident on the ball. He will do spins and little touches that the people that love aesthetics will be happy. I think he's very confident. Good indoors, actually, for someone of the size. He's
Phenomenal.
a lot better indoors than you'd look at someone that's small and think, oh, at centre back he wouldn't do well there. But he's very strong indoors, and then his passing is better than most centre backs you'd find. So yeah, I think for what, 34 million,
one of the
best deals in the summer.
Yeah, one of the best price to quality deals of the summer for me. When you have a look at it, look, in every position he offers versatility. I think he has something to learn, ironically. And so when you have a look at it, for me, look at center back, of course, he's got a little bit more of the aerial issues, right? Like he is somebody that, you know, is smaller, but also it's not just the fact that he's small. He's actually got a good leap. He doesn't contest well with target men, and they can isolate him, 1v1 very easily. It's one of the big critiques that people have had of him. It's not just Holland, by the way, but the type of Holland, the Vlahovic, the Tammies. He doesn't do well with that type of duel. Now, in terms of kind of the fullback potential, he's somebody that's actually very conservative in the first phase, but ironically, the higher he gets, the more adventurous he gets with his passing, which is very weird because it's honestly a lot of times backwards with a lot of players. They're typically safer when they're deeper, but this is not the case with Timber. Look, he's got one of the sharpest turns I've seen. So people with the half turn bias and the aesthetic bias will love that.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, he's got a really fluid, quick, sharp half turn, but he's just so punchy in the first 5 yards. I've compared him, if he is going to be a center back, he'll be more of a lateral center back. He definitely won't be the libero that we saw with that 3-4-3 in the middle. He's going to be somebody, if he does play center back, that'll be a little bit more wide because, again, he doesn't do well with those aerial long balls, which is a huge part of our defending on the halfway line, right? So he is somebody that I think is excellent in duels. He won't get isolated 1v1 out wide. I think he is somebody that you can almost have a very Ake-like assumption with. I think down the line, though, he's going to be a midfielder. I see a midfielder in that boy. I see somebody that we can mold into our very own Caicedo. The reason why it's not great right now is because when he's receiving back to goal right now, he struggles. And so he is somebody that loves to break into midfield. He carries into midfield brilliantly. But the thing is, when he's already in midfield and he's asked to receive on those turns, that's where it gets a little bit techie right now. And I think he needs a little bit more composure. He needs a little bit more tweaking. But for me, very possible that we could see him start because Zinchenko's injured at the start. So if we don't have a left back down there, you could definitely invert at left back. By the way, it's not just right back that he carries that versatility. I think he's somebody that plugs so many holes, but for me down the line is going to be a project midfielder. I think we're going to slowly work and make him become, if we don't get a Caicedo-like, I think that type of midfielder is what Timber will become in 2 to 3 years. So brilliant passing range, great idea. I think he does rush his actions sometimes, in terms of being overly aggressive, in terms of marking people. But he is just so dominant in the duels that I think that he makes up for it. He's definitely somebody that, you won't beat in big or large distances. So for me, one of my favorite deals of the summer. I definitely think that there was other deals that we could have made that were maybe even cheaper, but weren't as versatile and don't have as much explosion potential in the midfield. So I really enjoy that part of Timber. And I think that we're going to see him thrive in the midfield. But Curran, I'll let you end on Timber and then we'll wrap it up. How are you with the signing? What do you think of it?
For me, it's very simple. Most of these signings for me indicate that we're going back to a 3 at the back formation. I think it's very simple for me. I think Timber's definitely, as you mentioned, probably a wide centre back. I don't really see him as a fullback. I don't really see him as a 2 at the back centre back. I think he's best as a right centre back and a 3. Chris mentioned as well is his ability to be adventurous in the first phase is ridiculous. I think that he's someone that carries the ball quite well, but his ability to just the short passing in the first phase is something that people are going to like. I think the other thing is, I just think the main thing will his long passing. I think that there's times where it's just kind of a bit erratic. I don't think he's not as good. I think the main thing that I think Georgian mentioned is the potential in the final third. His ability to find through balls from the right half space in the final third is immaculate. I think that he's someone that can carry the ball from second to third phase quite well. So there's a lot of potential there in terms of midfield wise, especially in terms of the final third potential as well. But for me at the moment, he's a third centre back in a 3. I think he's a right centre back in a 3. And for me, I think that the signing of Kiwior in January, as well as this one now, I think kind of points to a more three at the back type of formation going forward, because you have these wide centre backs that are very good technically, that can receive well and go through the lines quite well. So for me, I just think that that's that kind of way to actually look at things in terms of going forward and how we plot our our next couple of seasons and what we're going to use these signings to do. I think that's very important. But in terms of I want to get both of you guys to talk about the window. I think
that's what I was about to go into. I was gonna, obviously this is an Arsenal video, but I saw a question earlier that what other pieces of business have you seen? I would say in the Prem that you think have been good deals, or other teams that you think are having good summers, maybe better than Arsenal so far. And then to end, what do you rate the window so far? That's what I was going to ask. So George,
I think that we've been the major players in the market. I don't think anybody had a better window than us. In terms of some deals that I like, I'm not going to hide it. I wanted it last year or the year before, but I think Andre Onana is regrettably a very good signing for United. I worry how it's going to be fitted with all the other signings that they have. They have zero secondary build-up quality beyond the midfield, and even there's a lot of issues in right center back and right back. But for me, I think Andre Onana is a very good signing for them. A little pricey, but a very good signing nonetheless. I think when I have a look at, I'm maybe hot take, I don't love Liverpool's business. I don't. I think that when I have a look at it, Szoboszlai and McAllister, that gets you a Valverde. And we know that there's a big
change.
Mm-hmm. And so and for me, that does a lot more than those two players did. So I do think that a lot of our rivals, I've been very confused. Tonali for Newcastle, again, another one that I think is not a great buy. Like a good player.
I think that we had this out yesterday. I think that as a midfield three, it can work, but why have they limited themselves like this? I think they needed a six. It's that simple.
Midfielders. Yeah, they needed an anchor, and so I don't know. Like for me, looking at the rivals, I haven't seen stuff. I agree here that Chelsea have sold well, but they haven't bought anybody that I can kind of pair that with. So I
disagree with that, man. I really do. If you sell well, you leave your squad in a situation where that you're not struggling to actually fill out a midfield three. Like they have
their squad was bloated to a level.
Yeah. It was.
Let's
not go about things here. It was very bloated. They needed to sell a lot. But the question is, you have 4 left backs and 1 pivot player, and you're putting a Pochettino squad.
Newcastle just got pretty much confirmed Harvey Barnes. What do you think of that? Do you think that helps them?
Over Alex Saint-Maximin, right? And that's I think.
Yeah. Do you not feel like that's a downgrade?
No,
I think throughout the season, if you watch from the start, Saint-Maximin was playing. Then there went a long period of time where he wasn't playing. He's not the Eddie Howe type. I've literally seen it in real life, like Eddie Howe just trying to force him to press.
He's gonna ball out in Saudi.
He's not that type of player, and
he's gonna ball the hell
maybe
out
the combination
in Saudi,
play on the left hand side with a Harvey Barnes and a Willock is probably a lot more beneficial than just the 1v1 play of Alexander.
Think about that with moving Callum Wilson more to a backup role and Alexander Isaac leading the line, and then you've got a Harvey Barnes with the Willock on that left central mid. I think that it's gorgeous. It's in terms of how files it works. And they had to replace the Anthony Gordon that they thought that they were getting.
But the thing is, they're still for Newcastle. What annoys me about them is that they had Alan Saint-Maximin, but they still haven't got a left back, and they still haven't got a right wing to replace Almiron. Because I don't care what you say, that purple patch is not coming back. It's just not for me. So
just to kind of wrap up, I guess, my thoughts, because I think that there's nothing that rivals have done that scares me. But I will say, I think the window's in a bit of a lull. And once Mbappe moves, an explosion of deals are going to happen. Like, I really think that that's a pending deal that's we're going to wait for. But yeah, ultimately, I think we've done the best business. Every single one of our rivals, for me, haven't done enough. And we'll get into it, but I just think it's halfway through the window. Like we're sat here discussing the end because our window is pretty much done, unless we're replacing Kai's departure. So we're here, but nobody else is. So it's really tough to be ironclad and black and white on other people's.
No, but the thing is, we've done our business so early; it's ruined everyone else's business, and that's the beautiful
Essentially.
thing of it. Like,
Yeah.
if you look at Chick DeCroy right now, reports coming out they want 70 to 80 million for him.
Oh,
Like,
there
that's just not going to be a case. That wasn't the case 15 days ago. So,
Out of
like,
10,
you're looking,
George.
yeah,
Sorry to cut you off. Out of 10, what do you rate Rice, Havertz, and Timber for what, around 200 million? And Xhaka leaving. That's our window so far.
Well, the tough thing is, Chris, I don't think we're done. Like, I think right
I
now,
know, I don't think so either, but I mean, like, it is a transfer window review so far.
Mm.
it's an
So
8,
far,
it's
what
an
do
8
you
so
rate?
far. It's an 8 so far. And the reason that it's an 8 is because we haven't sold anybody of note quite yet. I do think that we need another midfield addition. And I think that in general, we've done so well, but I have questions about Kai Havertz. I love Timber. I love Declan Rice. And there's aspects I like about Kai, but I'm not 100% convinced.
there are things that have pissed me off.
So
There
I
are
think
things, yeah.
8 is good, but I also kind of factor in the contract renewals. Saliba, Martinelli, Saka, like that's huge. You know, the only reason it's not a 9 or a 10 for me is literally the sales. I think that's the only thing. If we were able to kind of combine really good selling with that, then I could sit there and say, yeah, it's a 9 or a 10 for sure.
I think I agree because Xhaka for 22 million, I think it's very good business considering that it was probably going to be like a 12, 13 million window, 30 million sale, sorry. So 21.5, 22 million is good. And then the signings this early, Havertz was announced in June. Rice was signed before Timber, but was announced after Timber. But
Don't get me started on that, man.
We've completed 3 of the biggest deals of the window so far within a month of the window starting. So the proactiveness has to give it a rate for me. So 8.5. I think with the sales like a Balogun, what we're gonna do with Cedric, Holding, Pepe, Lokonga, Tavares, like there's still a lot up in the air for me to just go like 10 out of 10 or 9 out of 10 because there's still so much business. We could see a midfielder, an attacker. I don't know what we could see coming in the month plus we have left of the window. There's still so much time left. So yeah, I'm very optimistic. And if it ended today, I'd be very happy, but annoyed at the sales again. But I think we will get sales done and the number will probably go up this time next month.
Yeah, I agree. I think an 8 is fair. I just think that for me, I just think that the allocation, I'm still not fully on board with Havertz, but like I'll give it a chance. I think the Havertz makes us change our system. Whereas if you go for someone cheaper, like even like a Kudus, for example, he fits in at left centre mid probably better than Havertz would, and then you could go probably use that 20 million more to go after a Caicedo, even if you want to do something like that. So I just think that there are better ways we could have done things, but I do like the signing. I think that I will obviously there's definitely a reason why we bought him, and there's definitely reasons why he's going to be able to really hit his potential with us because he's surrounded by players that will really be conducive to what he needs to do as a player. So definitely, I would say 7.5, 8, something around there. The contract signings I've said it on multiple shows, it's massive. I think that's the main thing. You look at how City have lost Mahrez now; they're struggling to find someone. They're going to be paying 75 plus for Rafinha. It looks like it's the market there is so dry, and to get someone of Bakayo's quality for the amount of money that we have to pay for him is ridiculous. So, yeah, 7.5, 8, I think is good as well. Somewhere around that. So, yeah. And the good thing about what we've done is, and I want to say this again, it has ruined anyone else's chances at signing midfielder in that profile, which we've said multiple times is so rare. So a Caicedo is going for 85, 90 million now. Czech Decor is 75, maybe million pounds. I know it's ridiculous. So these kind of things could definitely change the trajectory of the window for other clubs as well. And then you take into account Fofana's injury. That's another thing that will change the window as well, because Chelsea are going to have to spend money on different players to replace Fofana now. So the window is, as George mentioned, the Mbappe thing, the window is kind of piecing together as things evolve. So and it's kind of all playing out for us. It's a bit strange to say that. I don't think that's kind of a new sensation, because every move is kind of playing out in our favor, and we've got our business done so early that we can choose what we pick to do next. And I think the next thing is going to be a sale. So Balogun definitely, Cedric and Pepe hopefully. So let's see where we go from there.
Let's see what we do. Guys, thank you so much for all the interactions. We really appreciate all the support. Before we head out, make sure you guys smash the like button. You hit the bell for notifications to know when, in fact, we do upload. In terms of all the guys' socials, we got them all down below. At George VAFC is me, Karan at Karan BOP, and of course, Chris is at CKFTBL. We are Ball Over Passion here on YouTube. We're at BOP Footy on Twitter, and we will be back with some more content. We really appreciate, again, everybody for tuning in. And we hope you guys enjoyed that little transfer roundup. So we'll be back with some more content down the line. But before you guys head out, make sure you guys hit that like button, and we'll catch you guys on the next one. All right. Peace, guys.
Peace.